So last night was the second and final presidential debate. And I have to tell you, for me, being so desensitized to this stuff, being so used to what we see and hear from politicians, it is actually an outlier. It really is a debate that was superlative compared to other debates in a number of different ways. Number one, Joe Biden did really well. I didn't expect Joe Biden to come out in the way we did. I knew he would say things that would make sense, but I didn't imagine that he was going to be, from a tone and optics perspective, so strong in comparison to Donald Trump. I also didn't imagine that Donald Trump was going to come out almost despondent and barely able to even respond to Joe Biden's attacks for the first 70% of the debate, the last 30% going to conspiracy theories and things that don't make any sense. And it was one of the most uneven debates I can imagine watching. I thought back to 2012. The famous Obama-Romney debate, where Romney made kind of a fool out of himself, starting to say things that didn't make sense, and then trying to get Obama to concede something, and Obama just sitting there casually saying, "Please proceed, Governor." And it was very uneven, but Romney's performance was better than Trump's last night. And Joe Biden just landing brutal hit after hit on Trump. Trump seemed almost slowed down, depressed, confused, looked like he was taking physical punches rather than simply metaphorical ones. In the first debate, Biden wasn't nearly as strong as I'd like to see. And Trump was kind of annoying with his childish interruptions, but it was not so lopsided. Last night's debate, stunningly one-sided. So let's look at some clips. One quick note, excellent job by moderator Kristen Welker. She had total control of the debate the entire time. There was no point at which she was in the Chris Wallace position of almost having to beg Trump to stop interrupting. She in full control of the entire debate. Very, very good to see. And even from the get-go, I mean, Trump entering with no mask, Joe Biden with a mask, all emblematic, a microcosm of the entire portion of the debate about coronavirus, which was, as usual and as expected, one of the worst parts of the debate for Donald Trump. Trump immediately trying to defend his work on coronavirus, defending the indefensible, and predictably making no sense, talking about what he's been able to do with goggles and how other world leaders have praised him.
We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world.
Joe Biden, shot out of a cannon, immediately says, listen, any president who oversees 220,000 deaths, they can't continue to be president. You don't reelect someone on the heels of such a failure.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day, and there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan.
So really not a good start for Donald Trump. And it got even worse. Donald Trump tried pulling this thing about, I shut down travel from China, and Biden said I was xenophobic. And Biden this was when I thought, Joe is really ready. Biden with a perfect line, which is, you are xenophobic, but not because you shut down travel from China.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him.
This is when, in watching Trump just stand there, shaking his head, I realized this was not during the muted microphone phase of the debate. I realized Trump didn't have it. Trump was not up to the task last night. And indeed, this is where it really started going off the rails. Trump, in trying to defend his record, bizarrely goes into talking about Joe Biden's basement and Joe Biden making money that I guess Trump thinks is not appropriate money for Joe Biden to have made.
Your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement.
So that's an example of Trump throwing a punch that just missed everything. Like it just hit nothing. And Joe Biden, in a bunch of these moments, Joe Biden just smiled and laughed. And I think that's the right way to brush off Trump's silly conspiratorial ad hominems, because if you try to deal with it directly, I don't know how you do it without sounding defensive. Pete Buttigieg on Fox News has had some good examples of when he's put on the defensive and he hits back and it doesn't seem like he's on the defensive. He's back to offense. I just don't know that Biden would have been able to do it in this format without actually seeming defensive, which you don't necessarily want to do. So I think Biden just laughing this stuff off was perfect. It's the right way to do it. Joe Biden then going after Rudy Giuliani, not mentioning the Borat fiasco, but mentioning many other things that triggered Donald Trump.
Well, his buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me.
So Trump also unable to take that on. And then again, Donald Trump saying when the topic of his taxes came up, that now his line is he prepaid millions of dollars. At the town hall, when Trump asked about paying $750 in taxes, Trump said, well, that's a statutory amount. That's like a minimum fee, almost like you pay when you file. And my accountant said I paid that. Didn't make any sense. Now we have a different story, which is he actually prepaid millions of dollars. And I guess that's why they're not on his return. It's impossible to decipher what he's talking about. None of it is believable. And then this is where it almost seemed like Trump was unaware of his surroundings and not even understanding what he was saying. He starts using this mafia-esque language to accuse Biden of giving money to the big men. Nobody could understand what he was talking about.
Well, I called my accountants, underwrote it. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it. And it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell
told you that. Excuse me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not.
Trump continuing to say, by the way, 5 years later, he can't release his taxes, even the ones from, I guess, like 2012 at this point, because he's under audit or ARDIT, as Trump often says. And then again, Trump saying Biden gives money to the big men. One of the most incoherent attacks of the night. Joe Biden just saying, this is really simple. Show us the returns.
To talk about this more broadly, respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to reduce your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
Come on, man, becoming a very, very popular meme from this debate. Come on, man. Now, this is a really special moment because Trump tries a Hunter Biden conspiracy and refers to some very strong email. And Joe Biden perfectly explains that Americans pay tariffs that Trump put on China. Trump still doesn't understand how tariffs work.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay. Very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North Korea.
With $1.5 billion from China to manage after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what specifically are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come from China.
You know the taxpayer is, it's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up.
Look at how this is 4 years into the presidency. And Donald Trump still thinks that when you tariff China, Chinese people send the United States Treasury money. No, our companies, when they import things from China, pay the tariffs. The money comes from American companies. And I've said before, I don't know if Trump still doesn't understand that or is pretending not to understand it. When the topic of healthcare came up, Trump started talking about Joe wants socialized healthcare. He's going to destroy Medicare and Social Security, none of which is true, some of which we wish were true, but it's not. Biden astutely pointing out, you're running against me. I beat those other people. Why are you talking about other people's policies?
When he says public option, he's talking about socialized medicine and and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it. In his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's let Vice President Biden respond.
It doesn't work.
He's a very confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against.
Joe Biden quickly lining up retorts to all attacks, which was great to see. Wasn't ready in the first debate on that front. This was maybe the worst moment of the debate for Trump. Trump again pulling out this line of attacking so-called Democrat cities and states, which is a message of complete division. And this was pitch perfect. Joe Biden perfectly responding to that divisive message, saying, listen, I'm not going to talk about blue states and red states. I'm a Democrat running for president. I will be the president for everybody, regardless of what state you're in. Couldn't have teed it up any better for Joe Biden.
It was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
if I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because they have to balance their budget.
And you see Trump just kind of nodding and shaking his head like a fool during that one. Even Trump seemed to realize that attacking half the country when you're depending on a handful of key battleground states to win, which are very much split blue-red, Democrat-Republican, not a good idea. The next worst moment for Trump was when he casually went xenophobic. The topic of immigration came up, and Trump had no choice, I guess, in his mind, in order to really own Biden, than to talk about low IQ Hispanic immigrants. Just really bottom of the barrel stuff here.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump, let's give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
You don't know the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
And then one hilarious moment was Trump calling himself the best president of for black people since Abe Lincoln. And Joe Biden sarcastically came back and said, you know, Abe Lincoln over here hasn't done this, that, and the other thing. Trump doesn't understand it. Trump doesn't understand humor. Trump doesn't understand satire. It's actually sociologically the most interesting moment. We talk about how Trump has no sense of humor. He doesn't seem to get jokes. Trump is actually visibly confused by this joke and asks what Joe Biden is talking about.
President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
No, he made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
you said you're Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said,
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying,
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black.
This is just so funny. And Biden can't help but laugh. Trump doesn't understand satire. It's lost on him. I don't know what Trump understands less, satire or how tariffs work. He seems to not understand either of them. And then final stunning moments after the end of the debate, we saw Melania Trump and Jill Biden walk onto the stage. Melania approaching Donald Trump. They seem to barely even say a word to each other. They look miserable. Trump not putting a mask on. Joe Biden immediately puts a mask on at the end of the debate, emblematic of their respective perspectives on coronavirus. Jill Biden embraces Joe Biden. They look like a normal couple. The Trumps look miserable. Biden, both Jill and Joe Biden, try to catch Trump and Melania's eye to say bye, to wave bye. Trump doesn't even acknowledge the Biden's presence on stage. The Bidens wave. Trump start just walking off. And then you see it's either Melania ripping her hand from Trump's hand or vice versa, but just completely emblematic of everything that these people represent. So a terrible debate for Donald Trump. The way I would summarize it, if you said, how do you distill what happened? Trump spent 90 minutes talking about his problems, and his victimhood and his being a martyr, while Joe Biden talked about the problems affecting the American people rather than about Joe Biden himself. And if you have ever seen a more lopsided presidential debate, let me know, because I can't remember one. We've got just a little over a week left until this election. Trump is going to try funny business to win it. We are at the election. 45 million people have already voted. That's about a third of the expected electorate or more. Let's do it. This is it. There's nothing else to wait for. No more debates. You can vote now in a vast majority of states, either by mail or early. Let's just do it. And let me know your thoughts about the debate in these last 10 days on Twitter, where you can find me at Pakman. Today's program is made possible in part by Surfshark, which is a premium VPN service that protects you online. And they are giving my audience 83% off a 2-year plan, plus 3 extra months free on top of that, which makes all of it about $2 a month. Surfshark hides your IP address, which helps protect you from things like government surveillance, big tech companies tracking you, internet service providers logging and selling your internet history. Surfshark encrypts your data and keeps you safe from hackers. It can block ads and protect you from viruses. And Surfshark never logs your internet activity. And best of all, you can install it on unlimited devices. I use it every time I'm connected to the internet. Surfshark is giving my audience 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 extra months free. So that comes out to just about $2 a month, which is almost nothing relative to the peace of mind you will have while browsing online. Just go to surfshark.deals/Pakman. I've put the link underneath this video, and make sure to use the coupon code Pakman.